More details on talent being sent home from AEW Collision, as well as the backstage confrontation between AEW's real world champion CM Punk and Ryan Nemeth, in addition to Tony Khan's reaction to all of this, as well as his response to CM Punk's return last month. There's a lot going on here. We're going to give you the details. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling, and the news and the fallout of the likes of Hangman Adam Page, Ryan Nemeth, and others being sent away from AEW Collision continues because we now have more details from various different outlets and various different journalists on the backstage confrontation between CM Punk and Ryan Nemeth, as well as the overall reaction and several instances of talent being sent away from AEW Collision despite being booked to appear on the show, then being sent home out of the arena, potentially at the request of CM Punk. So there's a lot to get into here. Let's start off talking about this backstage confrontation between CM Punk and Ryan Nemeth. So this comes from PW Torch. There's really sort of three big stories and three different perspectives on this. It comes from PW Torch, House of Wrestling, and Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select. Let's start off with PW Torch. So the relative calm after CM Punk's return to AEW events earlier this summer, a result of separating him from top wrestlers he's had backstage issues with and stationing him exclusively on Collision, seemingly has come to an end. Now, of course, CM Punk took overt digs at Hangman Adam Page in a non-televised promo after AEW Collision aired last Saturday night, and stories have begun to surface of Punk creating a bunker of sorts at Collision events and even confronting wrestlers he sees as being aligned with his enemies and not him. They include the likes of Ryan Nemeth, Matt Hardy, and Christopher Daniels. They are reportedly among those Punk has essentially banned from attending Collision events. Now, this promo in question, or this untelevised promo or real sort of rant on Hangman Adam Page kind of started on Saturday night. Punk spoke to the crowd after Collision ended. Once again, here's what CM Punk had to say, then we'll get back to the story.
Yes. Carolina is Hangman country.
No! 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 Hell no!
Earlier today, I went to a local supermarket and I figured out why they call him Hangman. It's because the pegs in the toy aisle are full of Hangman action figures because nobody wants to buy them. He's a peg warmer. Unlike me, who moves merchandise,
Yes!
pops ratings,
Yes!
sells toys.
The GOAT!
I got everybody in AEW saying, I'm the heart, I'm the soul, I'm the spirit. Well, that's objective. What is a fact is the people who say that certainly aren't the chin of AEW, because the lights go out faster than what? GTS, go to sleep. I don't know what I'm trying to do. I got rocked too. I told the House of Black no chops, and they chopped me some very mad.
Well, obviously, by all indications, this was not a planned attempt to build up a match between CM Punk and Hangman Adam Page, but rather it was CM Punk venting. Hangman himself had shown up at the Greensboro Coliseum before Collision, planning to record a promo for the following week's edition of Dynamite. That's the episode that's going to air tomorrow on TBS. He was turned away and told the promo would have to be taped somewhere else, an incident first reported by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select. Punk's meltdown at the All Out Media post-show press conference last year included him venting about Hangman taking what he felt were personal, uncalled-for digs at him for months earlier on television, which had gnawed at him all the way through the summer whilst he was off with a foot injury. Punk reportedly also made it clear he didn't want Matt Hardy or Christopher Daniels attending Collision in person, according to a Wrestling Observer report this week too. This is quite surprising considering Christopher Daniels is a top member of AEW's talent relations team. When Punk made an advertised appearance on Dynamite on June 21st, Pro Wrestling Torch is reporting that they learned that he confronted Ryan Nemeth backstage over a tweet where Nemeth indicated loyalty to the Elite. Nemeth referred to Punk Punk as, quote, literally the softest man alive in response to Punk referring to the Young Bucks as counterfeit Bucks. Nemeth is known to be close to the Young Bucks as he has appeared in their Being the Elite YouTube video series in several episodes. At Dynamite, PW Torch sources have indicated that Punk confronted Nemeth in the locker room. The story conveyed to PW Torch, and again this is what they're reporting, is that Punk cornered Nemeth in the locker room, got inches away from his face, and angrily and aggressively asked if they had a problem or if they needed to settle things outside. Punk cited to Nemeth that his comments on Twitter inflamed existing tensions and that the optics of the tweet sent a bad message. The incident was witnessed by numerous wrestlers and was characterized as awkward and weird. Nemeth moved the argument to the hallway where Punk continued to berate him, according to the sources from PW Torch. Nemeth defended his judgment in calling Punk soft since Punk fired shots at the Bucks. Punk pushed back that his timing was bad and it worked against the public image they were going for, that everyone was either on the same page or at the very least not inflaming prior issues. Nemeth then asked Punk if he shouldn't react to things Punk says on TV, and Punk said that that would be the right choice at that time. Then they shook hands, but apparently the tension was still high as they went their separate ways. Nemeth confided the incident in friends backstage and asked how to handle the situation. Nemeth, of course, has almost no leverage in AEW in comparison to CM Punk, who is a much bigger star, so Nemeth backed off and laid low since his job could be at risk if Punk spoke out behind the scenes against him. He's even since deactivated his Twitter account. Now, Nemeth arrived at Collision in Greensboro on Saturday night for his first scheduled match in a while, but was told he wasn't needed anymore and was given itinerary to return home, according to the report from Fightful. Wrestlers are in an awkward position when it comes to speaking out against Punk in any way, since Tony Khan has made it clear he's not only a big part of AEW's business strategy to sell tickets, sell pay-per-views and draw ratings, with Collision being launched in great part to be a vehicle for Punk, but also that Khan himself is personally a big fan of the former AEW World Champion. When Punk first returned to AEW earlier this summer after his hiatus dating back to the prior year's all-out media scrum, Khan stood up backstage in the gorilla position with his headset on and started pumping his fist and chanting CM Punk enthusiastically as Punk walked by. The feeling backstage among wrestlers not in a position of power with a big contract is to lay low when it comes to Punk, because you don't want to be on what is essentially his enemies list. Punk otherwise has received good reviews for his leadership behind the scenes. He is fiercely protective of Collision being a low drama environment, which is why he doesn't want wrestlers he perceives as disloyal or too closely aligned with the Elite crew to be backstage at Collision. He sees as Collision as his show and his chance to provide the type of leadership that he is critical of the executive vice presidents not providing on Dynamite, but that has extended to Punk having essentially veto power over who can or cannot be present backstage at Collision events. So certainly big accusations and big stories coming out from PW Torch regarding what has happened with this confrontation. Now, this was expanded upon by House of Wrestling. Nick Hausman writes that earlier today, House of Wrestling had reported that Christopher Daniels and Ryan Nemeth were asked not to come to Collision this week or this past week due to the issues with CM Punk. Daniels, now this is quite interesting when it comes to Christopher Daniels, because he is in a position of perceived power in AEW, considering he's the head of talent relations. Daniels was involved in the post-AEW All-Out altercation last year, and since longtime friend Ace Steel, who was also involved, was not allowed to return backstage at AEW Collision, CM Punk asked that Daniels not be allowed backstage either. He perceives it as not being fair. Nemeth's issues with Punk stem from a tweet earlier this year where the brother of Dolph Ziggler alluded to the real AEW World Champion being the softest man alive. Punk is said to be looking to keep drama out of the Collision locker room, and for that reason, he asked that Nemeth not be allowed backstage at Collision. Now, we spoke about the PW Torch situation and how they reported this incident happening. Now, House of Wrestling are reporting, Nick Hausman is reporting, that he can confirm that the confrontation did happen, but they've learned a few more details as to how this whole thing played out. As House of Wrestling were told, Punk requested Nemeth call him soft to his face, basically going up to him saying, "Call me soft to my face," which Nemeth declined to do. Punk then acknowledged that he knew about Nemeth's lack of TV time and that he thought the young star was trying to win points with the EVPs. When it was agreed that no violence between them would be necessary, Punk asked Nemeth to stop tweeting negative things so that everyone could start moving from the negativity. This is slightly different than the Torch report about whose idea it was for Nemeth not to tweet about AEW and or Punk's issues. They were also told that it ended with a handshake and then they moved on, which again is a little bit different. So what House of Wrestling is reported that essentially they both agreed to shake hands, moved on. And it wasn't CM Punk saying you should delete your Twitter. It was more a Ryan Nemeth decision. Now, Sean Ross Sapp has also expanded upon both of these articles, which is quite interesting. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select is reporting they've now heard stories from many sides of the AEW Collision, CM Punk, removal situation, etc. As highlighted on August 13, Ryan Nemeth indeed was brought into North Carolina before the tapings, before he was promptly sent home. Fightful Select are reporting they've learned more about the words they had recently. According to those familiar with the situation, Punk did approach Nemeth when the two were at Chicago's Dynamite, where Punk was asked to be at. Again, Punk didn't want to be there, he was asked to be there, considering, as he said, I'm a Collision guy. Punk spoke to Nemeth and asked to make good on his literally the softest man alive tweet. The two moved out of the locker room and into a hallway, where those close to Punk claim that Nemeth said he was working to get heat. Punk believed that the tweet was Nemeth trying to score points with his friends and asked him to knock it off because, quote, tensions were high and they were trying to move on. He said he didn't want Nemeth being passive-aggressive unless they were handling it another way. People close to Punk claim that Nemeth apologized and that the two shook hands. It was confirmed to Fightful that Punk didn't want Nemeth on Collision, even eating in catering, much less wrestling on the show. It wasn't clarified to Fightful if that was because of his tweet or the relationship with the Elite. In addition, as I mentioned, Nick Hausman of House of Wrestling reported that the reason Christopher Daniels was being kept from Collision was because of Ace Steel, CM Punk's friend, is also not allowed backstage at Collision. Punk didn't see that as fair, as Daniels was also involved in breaking up the Brawl-Out fight last September. Now, Fightful do say they've made an effort to reach out to Ryan Nemeth, but he's off of social media. Again, not at CM Punk's request, allegedly, but at his own rationale and reason. Now, Fightful have also confirmed that Hangman Adam Page was around this past weekend for a pre-tape, but they haven't confirmed he was at the building and asked to leave. The Wrestling Observer reported that Page was told that he needed to do the pre-tape away from the arena. After the show, Punk cut a promo taking shots at Hangman Adam Page, which House of Wrestling claims didn't come off the way Punk wanted, and he felt bad about that after it happened. Punk claims to people that he still talks to that he still wants to sit down with Hangman Adam Page, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, but they all refuse to sit down and talk to him. Those that Fightful spoke to say that Hangman Page generally avoids the situation and has not been interested in working with Punk at least over the last year or so. The situation was not a work on Hangman's end as of this recording, though many on Collision have said that they believe Punk is trying to work himself into an angle. Those close with the Elite say that these situations make them want to distance themselves even more from CM Punk and this entire fiasco. Now, Fightful Select have also confirmed that Matt Hardy and Isaiah Cassidy were supposed to be at recent AEW Collision episodes, and their travel was booked and then unbooked. They were not scheduled to be at this past week's episode of Collision, though. The talent that have been pulled are of the belief that it was CM Punk, but they haven't heard specifically if that's the case. So those that have been pulled from shows or been booked and then told to leave, they're of the belief that it's because they're on a list of people that CM Punk doesn't like or CM Punk perceives to be friends or allies with the Elite. That same suspicion is part of the domino effect essentially that led to where we are now, dating back to speculation that Colt Cabana was initially not going to be re-signed by AEW at the request of CM Punk to Tony Khan, but both Punk and Tony Khan have denied that that's actually what happened. Now, Fightful have not heard of Tony Khan's reaction to the situation. Outside of that, he was excited for Punk to be back. As I mentioned, PW Torch has said that Khan was audibly exclaiming as Punk walked past him at Gorilla upon his return. So again, a lot of different moving parts of this one. What are your thoughts on this drama? What are your thoughts on the different stories? What are your thoughts on the confrontation between CM Punk and Ryan Nemeth? What are your thoughts on Tony Khan's handling or lack of handling of the situation? And what are your thoughts of Punk's protection over AEW Collision? Is he right? Is he wrong? Or is this just more drama that's going on in AEW at the moment? Let me know your thoughts as always in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.